You almost certainly know that just across the river from Manhattan is the city of Hoboken. And it's likely you know as well that Hoboken's most famous native son is Frank Sinatra. Now, Frank Sinatra is well known in our city for the song New York, New York. If you've ever been to a Yankees game, you've heard it. You've likely heard it in all sorts of other ways. It's used in movies as a kind of anthem for our city. But interestingly enough, there's a much less well-known Frank Sinatra song called Manhattan, which is also about our fair city. The line that kind of intrigues me in that song is the subway charms us so. And there's a little part of me that wonders just what subway he was riding. But also, I sometimes remember the magic that is our subway system. But here's the line that I really want to lean into as a community of Christ here in Manhattan. I'll turn Manhattan into an aisle of joy. Isn't that wonderful? And isn't that our objective together? I'll turn Manhattan into an aisle of joy. Now, for those people who live well beyond the city of New York, perhaps the song from Frank Sinatra that they first think of or that seems most iconic to him is the song My Way. I'll do it. I did it my way. That, of course, kind of points to all of us. Most of us sort of like to do things my way. I know I do. I know that my way almost always seems like the best way to me. Um, and certainly the disciples that we hear about in the text that Ben read for us just a moment ago were really down with doing it their way. They're all about my way, so much that they come to Jesus with a complaint of somebody who wasn't doing it their way but was doing it their own way, which they didn't like at all. Okay, so the text today continues from the reading we had just a week prior, and that's the reading where Jesus teaches his disciples, reminds his disciples that the last must be first, and the first must be last. It's a teaching, where Jesus says you must be a servant of all. Jesus is on his way to Jerusalem in this section of Mark. So he's already orienting towards what will happen in Jerusalem and trying to prepare and ready his disciples both for what will happen there and what will need to happen beyond on their part, what happens in Jerusalem. Perhaps John is trying to distract Jesus from this teaching about servanthood and being last and all that kind of thing. Let's not talk about that, Jesus. That's not my favorite part of this whole gig. When he says to Jesus, we found this guy who was not following us. He's like off doing his own thing. He's not doing it our way. And he was trying to cast out demons. And while casting out demons, is a nice thing to try and do, he was doing it in your name, which is great, but he wasn't doing it our way. As if Jesus is going to be aghast that somebody was going rogue, right? Somebody who believed in him and understood the power of Christ, but was off contributing to the same goals and objectives in a different manner and not living under and working under the authority of the disciples, as if Jesus was going to be completely unhappy about such a thing happening. And Jesus, as often is the case, surprises them when he says, not too bothered by that. And anybody who's not working against us is kind of team us, right? Team justice, team righteousness. Anyone who's working against the forces of evil in this world is working towards the same objective, which is, of course, the kingdom. The disciples thought the point was that they needed to be followed, and they needed to have authority over those who were under them. So missing last must be first, and first must be last context of all that's happening. You know, they're proving here the human tendency towards intransigence and intractability, which, as you and I already know, is on full display much of the time in our moment in the history of the world. The human tendency towards intransigence and intractability is wildly visible in the moment in which we live. In the right now, it is without equal. And we can get stuck in thinking that we know the right way to do things, and the way that we want to do things is the best way to do things. And some of that is really difficult to address, because there are people who do not have the same objectives that we do as a community of Christ, as disciples of Christ. You know, there are people who have different objectives, whose objectives are entirely around their own interests. But there are plenty of people who have similar objectives to us, objectives of justice, objectives of peace, who have similar goals, but who may fall under other names, some of them Christian, some of them not, who may identify in different traditions, or may identify with no tradition at all. And this seems a really valuable moment to try and identify those who may do things differently, who may have their own path, who may see the way forward differently than we do, but who want to arrive at the same location, who are building the kingdom, even if they don't call it that, in their own way. And to try and create a space where we coexist with them, recognizing that we're on the same team. To let go of thinking that what matters is the way we do things, and to instead think what unites us one with another is our intention to arrive at a place of justice and righteousness, no matter the language and no matter the methods. You know, the great historian of the Reconstruction period is Eric Foner, and his books on Reconstruction are just so wonderful and so valuable to our understanding of that period, and to our understanding of the ways that period continues to reverberate in the now. He once gave an interview about exactly that, about the ways that the injustices of the Reconstruction of the pre-Civil War period and of slavery and of the Reconstruction period continue to have an impact on the challenges we face today. He was talking about all of the squabbling and fighting and differences of opinion that so often exist among those who want to right those wrongs, but have different methods of doing so. And we've seen that in the last several years as we try and have conversations nationally and culturally around the issue of racial injustice and economic problems that stem generation to generation, and institutional problems in terms of racial inequality, and in particular the way policing happens in this country, and the way redlining is a direct descendant of Jim Crow, and how that can continues to be played out today. And we have lots of people who agree all of those things are problems, tend to focus on fighting about how we should fix them. And he had a really interesting thought that I think is valuable for the church today. Around those questions, he said, I don't believe there's one true party line that every movement has to have. The Maoist view here is better. Let 100 flowers bloom. Let 100 tactics bloom. Let some people go into politics and other people not go into politics. Let some people work above ground and others not. You have the Underground Railroad. You have people working illegally, but you also have people working totally legally and openly. There's no one correct tactic. The more tactics you have, the better. And I don't think that's very far off from what Jesus said and meant when he taught his disciples, do not stop him. For no one who does a deed of power in my name will be able to soon afterward to speak evil of me. Whoever is not against us is for us. For truly I tell you, whoever gives you a cup of water to drink because you bear the name of Christ will by no means lose the reward. So how do we live this teaching in our lives today? I have a few thoughts that I want to encourage you to try and imagine how that they would, be lived out in your life, in your particular life. The first is, we need to continue to work to build a community of people. We need to find our tribe. We need to build our clan so that we have people with all sorts of different ideas and histories and stories and philosophies and gifts and talents. Because the more diversity we have in all of those things, the more diversity we have in every conceivable category, the stronger the movement towards the kingdom will be. And it becomes so important to find those people who you can be in conversation with, who might challenge your thinking. If you haven't, had anyone say to you recently, have you thought that there might be another way of looking at that, about at least something? I don't even care if it's like cooking, right? There might be another way to do what you're doing. If you haven't had somebody who does something differently than you in your life, engage you in conversation, then you really, really need to build that. That's why I find things like Bible studies so valuable. The opportunity to hear from one another, the opportunity to speak and have somebody say, yeah, that's true, but, and have you considered? That is invaluable. To be in study and conversation, to be engaged in thinking and talking together, particularly with not exactly like-minded people. Now, look, I get being in conversation with people whose objectives are entirely different than yours can be not terribly helpful. So I'm not talking about, people whose goals are entirely different. But I'm talking about people who see the world differently or have a different history and who yet want to arrive at the kingdom. Finding and being engaged with those people is essential to the work we're about. So make sure you have developed a community, and that make sure that you are helping us as a particular congregation develop a community of people with the same objectives but differing gifts, talents, histories, stories, and styles, right? We need to build diversity, and you need diversity in the family and tribe and community that you build for yourself. And you need to be studying and thinking and really reflecting and meditating on all that we're trying to achieve and expanding your view of the world and your understanding of the different ways to do things. The other thing that's real important as you build that community is to have fun. You need to, care about and be engaged in just good times with some people in your life. And some people in your faith community, and some people in your clan of those working towards the same objectives. Jesus just enjoyed spending time with his disciples. They ate, they gathered around the table, they told stories, they walked together, they went to dinners and gatherings together. These sorts of things are important towards the work as well. Periods of respite and joy and fun and recreation. Those things are essential to the objectives we hope to arrive at together. And making sure you have found a community of people that you can have serious conversations with, but also that you can enjoy just being around in very non-serious ways is so essential. And so we need to do that as a particular congregation as well. I found our Thursday night happy hours online on the Zoom situation so meaningful. Not because we had like really deep conversations, though on occasion we did, but it was just a time when we were really locked down to gather together in this sort of unusual, unexpected way, and just know that you're not alone, right? That was not productive according to some people's definition of that, but it was productive for my spirit and my soul, and for my ability to endure that time. And I think that's true even when we're not in lockdown. You need to build into your community of people working towards the kingdom periods of just enjoyment and recreation. So that I think is essential too. And then to remember at the end of the day that it's about the work. It's about the work. Jesus says, whoever is not against us is for us. But he points to the work of giving someone who's thirsty a cup of water, and recognizing that is an act of faith, an act of discipleship. It's about the work. So keeping the work before us, not losing sight because of all the detritus of daily life, not losing sight that the kingdom is our objective, and having a sense of purpose in all that we do together, having a sense of purpose in our efforts to work towards justice, to work towards economic justice, to work towards racial justice, to work towards a community, a world in which all are truly valued, and where all people are treated fairly, which doesn't always mean exactly the same, but where we are creating an environment, creating a world where justice reigns. That's what this is about. It's not about all doing it the same way and all falling into line. It's about the work, and it's about the place we want to arrive. That place is, of course, the kingdom. There's lots of work to do in our city and in our world. There's lots of work to do within ourselves. My guess is you're not perfect. I know I most definitely am not. I know there's a lot that we need to work towards together. And I know that part of the way we get there is by surrounding ourselves with people who want to arrive at the same place, but might have differing thoughts about how we do that. And I know that I'm better as a Christian. I'm better in my discipleship. I'm better as a friend and as a daughter. I'm better as a pastor. I'm better as a person. And I'm better as an advocate for justice when I allow myself to be stretched and challenged, when I allow others and when I invite others to show me a different way, when I invite others to teach me, when I assume I don't know everything. I am better, and I'm better able to be one who's working towards the kingdom. When I remember that those who aren't against me are with me, that there's all sorts of routes towards the kingdom. And when there are ways to build our efforts together that I might never have thought of if I hadn't invited the conversation, if I hadn't invited moments of joy and fun into my life with people who want to get there also. And if I hadn't done all of that thoughtfully and intentionally. So perhaps maybe the thing to do today or this week or this month or this year is to intentionally engage in a conversation with somebody who you know maybe thinks just a little bit differently than you, and to listen, really listen to why they want to arrive at the same place, but why they might think there are different ways to do so, or why their history might lead them towards that objective, but on a different route. Maybe, sort of being intentional and thoughtful about how you build all of these things into your life. As we come together as the people of Christ, the people called Methodists on John Street, trusting that in the power of God and following Christ, we can turn Manhattan into an island of joy. In the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit.